Hey everybody, welcome to 5 and 25, episode 10. We show up in Daniel chapter 3, and there's a fiery furnace going on. So we just left back in episode 9 where there was this prediction that somebody's going to come and make everything all right. And somebody was going to come, this baby would be born, and that somebody would come and be a sacrifice for sin. Well, things aren't going so good. A couple hundred years have gone by, and some of the enemies of the Jewish people have overtaken Israel, and they have moved in, the Assyrian Empire and the Babylonian Empire. And when we pick up our story today in Daniel chapter 3, there are different people, or there's a king called Nebuchadnezzar, and he is the ruler there, and he's making idols to himself, and he believes he's a god, and he's telling everybody they've got to worship a certain god, and if they don't, they're going to get thrown into the fiery furnace. Now, it's interesting that some Jewish people had been brought in there as slaves. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are three of those people, and it's interesting that even though they're there and far removed from episode 5 when we learned about the 10 Commandments, there are still Jewish people who are faithful to God. And they remember the command, don't bow down to idols, don't make other gods. And so even in slavery and even in the hardship of being captive by another ruler, they are still trying to follow God. Now Nebuchadnezzar said, if you don't, you get thrown into the furnace. And the key verses in this chapter are verse 15 through 18. And in verse 15, he calls the three of them up there and he says, hey, what God is going to protect you guys if you don't do what I say? And I love their response. So this is one of my favorite lines in all the Bible. They say, hey, our God is able to protect us. But even if he doesn't, we're still not going to follow you. We're still not going to bow down to these idols. And so I think that's an encouraging lesson for all of us, that it's not always going to go our way. And we have examples in the Bible, and this is one of the reasons I love this passage. We have examples in the Bible of people who said, you know, even if it doesn't go our way, even if we have to die, we're still going to follow the ways of the Lord. And so you'll find out what happens. He cranks up the volume of the fire, and anyway, I won't give it away. You'll have to read the chapter to find out what happens. But when we pick up next time, 600 years have gone by, and finally, the person that we've been waiting for is going to come into the picture. So Jesus is going to arrive. This is our last chapter in the Old Testament. The Old Testament are the stories before Jesus. The New Testament is the stories after Jesus. We're going to pick up in the New Testament in our next episode, episode 11, and we're finally going to have this prophesied person show up, Jesus, this person that we've seen foreshadowed in the Old Testament. I can't wait to introduce you to him in our next episode. See you then.